This is Cars and Bids, and today we're going to talk car photography. This is probably the single most important part of your listing. Taking good pictures will get you more money for your car, and yet most people say, yeah, I took the pictures, whatever, I'm done. And they don't put that much effort into it. But today, I'm gonna give you a few tips about how to take good photos of your car. Okay, first tip, before you take photos of your car, wash it. This may sound obvious, but you never know. A clean car always looks better, gets more people interested, attracts more attention than a dirty car. This, not acceptable. This, not acceptable. To get the most money for your car, simply wash it before you photograph it. All right, next up, let's talk light. Now, as you can see, today is a bright, sunny day, which seems like the light you would want for car photos, but it isn't really. You always do want to take your pictures outside. In garage photos with ugly fluorescent lights never looks as good as natural light outside, but direct sunlight like this, bright sun, is not necessarily ideal. There are a bunch of reasons for this. For one thing, direct sunlight can be really harsh on a car. It can create shadows that you're not thinking about. It makes things difficult, and it can wash out part of the car if it's too bright, or focus light on one part and kind of skip the rest. Also, if you use direct sunlight, you're going to have to keep moving the car around as you photograph it to make sure the sun is always placed where you want it to be. Now, if you do have to take pictures on a sunny day, two important tips. Number one, make sure the sun stays behind you. Behind you. If you are taking a picture, you look up, there's the sun, you are doing it wrong. Think of the sun as a giant spotlight that's lighting up the car. You wouldn't want to shoot going into or facing a spotlight. It's the exact same thing with the sun. Now, another sun tip, if you're going to shoot on a sunny day, try to do it at dawn or at dusk. That's when sunlight looks the best, not as direct or as harsh. It always looks a little better when it's starting to set. Everything just looks more appealing, more thrilling in that early twilight sunlight. Now next, let's talk camera. Ideally, you have a high quality digital camera, or you hire a professional photographer with access to such a camera. It may sound ridiculous, but we often find that a professional photographer is worth their expense. Their pictures are usually so good that they bring more eyeballs, more traffic, more interest, and their photos will typically get you more extra money for your car than they actually cost. Now, if you don't want to go to the trouble of getting a professional photographer or a really high quality camera, it's not really a problem. Most modern cell phone cameras are capable of taking really good photos, so don't worry too much about having the perfect equipment, just as long as it's good enough. Okay, so next, location. You want to choose a location that is relatively simple, without many distractions. For instance, you don't really want other cars in the shot. You want a background that isn't complex, that won't take people away from your car, because that's the focus. This empty parking lot with some trees behind it is good. Anyone looking at photos is just going to be focusing on this car. And this photo is way less distracting than this photo, where there's a lot to take people's attention off the car you're trying to sell. Don't just park in some Target parking lot with a bunch of cars around and take pictures. And speaking of pictures, no thumbs. Make sure your thumbs, your fingers, are not in the shot, on the lens, or covering up your license plate. That is the tackiest, most low effort way to photograph a car. And if you do that, I pretty much just assume your car has been maintained terribly, because you're not willing to put in any effort. Now, next up, we're shooting the exterior. You can take as many exterior photos as you want and submit them to us. We would love it. But you want to make sure you get at least one photo from every important exterior angle. That means front dead on, then front quarter left, front quarter right, side left, side right, rear quarter left, rear quarter right, and direct on the rear. Now, really, you want more photos than these. Closer, further, different angles, up, down, but this is the bare minimum you're gonna wanna have. You also wanna get a photo of each wheel to show curb damage or lack thereof, and ideally you wanna take close-up photos of all of the panels so people can see any imperfections. Now, interior photos are a bit harder, and this is where you'll especially wanna be shooting in the shade. Here is an interior picture in the sun, and you can see everything is in shadows. Some stuff is bright, some stuff is dark. Just doesn't look good. Go into the shade though, and everything clears up completely. Now there are no shadows you have to worry about. The difference between these photos is merely driving the car under a tree for 5 minutes, where there's a blanket of shade with no interior shadows. As for interior angles, you want to be thorough. Show the seats, both driver and passenger seat, to give a good idea of where. Back seats, of course, as well, if there are them. Show the dashboard from the driver's side and the passenger side. Make sure to show the gauge cluster with the engine running. You can take a picture of the car with accessories to show that all of your dash lights work, but also show the cluster with the engine on so people can see there are no warning lights. And if there are warning lights, obviously be prepared to explain them. Take photos of the footwells, the carpeting, the center control stack, the steering wheel, the shifter, the door sills, the odometer, basically every angle you can find. Next up, get good shots of the engine bay and the cargo area. Show the engine from a few different angles around the car and get some close-ups on anything that might matter. The cargo area, trunk, whatever it is on your car, be sure to get that photographed too, a couple of angles, and make sure to clean it out before you shoot it. Last, you'll want pictures of the details. For one thing, if there are imperfections or flaws, photograph them. This is essential for proper disclosure of your car's faults before selling it. Get close-up photos of any issues so potential buyers know what they're getting into. Also, be sure to get shots of your labels, your VIN label in the door jamb if you have one, any emissions labels under the hood, which can help potential buyers figure out if they can register the car where they live. Also, here's where you take photos of anything that goes with the car too. Owner's manuals, books, tools, service records, car covers, whatever is included with your sale, so the buyer knows what they're getting. You want to have all of that in your listing. So that's a pretty good guide to photographing your car. Follow that and you'll end up with good photos, and you will get more money for your car if you have good pictures in your listing.